What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and I hope you're all doing well today. Well, it's finally time for some Mage Tower guides, so of course I've got to start with the spec that I spent a lot of pulls on since I did it like right when the Mage Tower opened for the very first time all those years ago during the Nighthold raid of Legion, Outlaw. Now, if you need a sort of TLDR sort of thing on how the Legion Timewalking Mage Tower challenge is going to work, then please continue listening. If not, feel free to skip to whatever timestamp I slap on the screen now so you can get right to the fight against Agatha, as well as my recommendations on how to handle it. Okay, so each spec in the game has to fight one challenging opponent, and by defeating this foe, you're given access to a special armor transmog set for your class. Unless you're a Guardian Druid, and then you get an entirely new shapeshift form because this game is really fair and balanced when it comes to cosmetic rewards. Currently, it appears your character must be at least level 50 to partake in the Legion Mage Tower event, and the Legion Timewalking Weekly has to be active. To actually enter the Mage Tower, you'll need to head to the Broken Shore, which is a zone that's part of the Broken Isles. If you've never done any Legion expansion stuff before, you should be able to take the portal to Asuna from your portal room in either Stormwind or Orgrimmar depending on your faction. Just to make sure, I made a level 50 class trial and the Asuna portal was already open, but for whatever reason if you don't see a portal to that zone, then you might need to do the introduction to the Legion expansion on that character you want to try this on, which you can get from one of the mission boards in your main capital city. Once you're in the Broken Isles, fly over to the Broken Shore around the coordinates 4562 and look for the NPC War Counselor Victoria. Talking to her will allow you to select the challenge for your currently active specialization. Do note, when you engage your Mage Tower boss, you'll be scaled down to level 45 and your gear will be set to an item level of 50. This means if you don't have perfect, awesome gear at max level, then the challenge is still relatively balanced around the idea of how geared a level 45, item level 50 character would be. Also, none of the expansion feature abilities or borrowed powers or whatever you want to call them will work, so there's no Covenant abilities, no Soul Binds, no legendaries, no magical fairy dust sparkle power, or whatever they come up with in the future, none of it's going to work during the Mage Tower, so even if you're not a fully maxed out, min-maxy kind of character, then this really shouldn't impede your success in the Mage Tower at all. Alright, so hopefully you either watched the last part, or you already know how the Mage Tower is going to work, because from here we're going to be talking about our big old Imp Mama, Agatha. This fight has a lot of cleave damage, running back and forth, add spawns, add kill priority, and a bit of fancy footwork involved, but overall it's not too hard once you know what is the priority in each situation. There are 4 different types of imps that will assist Agatha in the order from most important to least. We have Smoldering Imps, Umbral Imps, Imp Servants, and Fuming Imps. Smoldering Imps will just cast Firebolt non-stop, so that doesn't seem like a big deal, but every time they get a successful cast off, they'll do 50% more damage over and over, meaning you want to cleave these down quickly or they can start to basically hit you really hard. Umbral Imps will usually spawn in groups. While they're alive, the boss will get an immunity shield, so you need to kill them pretty much immediately or you can't hurt Agatha at all. They often teleport around the room and will cast Shadow Bolt, so kill these basically as soon as they show up so you can keep cleaving off of Agatha. Next are the Imp Servants. Agatha always spawns these in groups of 2, and they come running from the other side of the encounter area. Once they reach Agatha, they'll begin channeling a funnel energy cast, which heals her and also fills her energy bar. These are not quite as important as Umbral Imps, but you can CC them with something like Blind, so that way you can stop them from channeling their cast, and that way the fight doesn't drag out any longer than it has to. And lastly, a Fuming Imp will occasionally spawn and try to run up to you and cast Plague Zone, which leaves a green puddle on the ground that slows you and deals damage when you stand in it. These enemies will only cast this move once they reach you, so if you kite them around and use either Gouge or other CCs, then they won't drop the puddles at all, but you can also just bait them to the edges of the room, so that way the puddles are out of the way if you want to. Okay, so Agatha only has a few moves outside of just summoning more imps. Phase 1 lasts until she hits 50% HP, so she won't move from her spot until then. As I mentioned earlier, she has an energy bar that slowly fills up during the fight. Once it reaches full, she will gain an absorb shield that you have to DPS through, because she'll start to channel a move called Dark Fury. The damage from Dark Fury increases the longer it's being channeled, so if you don't break the shield and kick the cast, then you'll start to get a ton of damage taken. Depending on your DPS and how quickly you're killing her Imp Servants, it's very possible for her to gain Dark Fury while Umbral Imps are active, which will make her immune to any damage while they're alive, so you can't break down her absorb shield. This is again where that whole priority of attack is really important, because otherwise you'll be taking a dirt nap pretty quickly if you can't break her shields. Anyways, kill the Umbral Imps when they spawn, and make sure to use the crap out of Blade Flurry so you can effectively cleave as many enemies as you can. When you kill imps, she'll occasionally throw a purple orb that hits the ground and deals AoE damage if you stand in the impact zone, so be mindful of those and stay moving regularly, especially for those fuming imps. Again, if the fuming imp reaches you, it explodes and leaves a puddle on the ground that hurts and slows you, so if you want to bait them to the sides of the room you can, that way the puddles don't really matter. I personally just kited them and killed them before they could blow up anyhow, so either way works. Once Agatha reaches 50% health, Phase 2 will begin. Most of the attacks and enemies are identical, except Agatha will now annoyingly teleport to one of the two sides of the room to get away from you repeatedly. There will also be a constant spam of giant fell boulders falling from the ceiling and rolling down the length of the room on either the left, middle, or right side of the path. Make sure to avoid getting squashed, as they will stun you for a few seconds and deal a pretty sizable chunk of damage too. That and being stunned means you'll likely fall behind on your ad management and other stuff like that. When you kill any imps in Phase 2, she'll also throw green attacks on the ground as well as those purple ones from earlier. The green ones leave a puddle on the ground that again hurts you when you stand in it, so keep an eye on your footing. Agatha will repeatedly teleport between both ends of the encounter area until either she is defeated or you're dead, and that's pretty much the tall and the short of this Mage Tower challenge. So once you beat her, you should have a time-warped color variant of your Tomb of Sargeras tier set in your appearance journal. You might need to log out and log back in for it to show up, because that happened to me on the PTR. I'll give you some quick recommendations for talents you should use, as I found these to be very effective. Ghostly Strike will help you do extra damage to Agatha, so always slap her upside the head with this when it's off cooldown. Acrobatic Strikes is virtually mandatory as always for Outlaw, since it lets you cleave a larger area of enemies, helps you hit things while avoiding the puddles and giant death boulders, and lets you more easily kite the fuming imps so they can't pop on you. Marked for Death is also virtually mandatory and makes this fight really easy, as you will have so many imps to hit with this move that you'll have combo points for days. I basically never used Mark for Death on Agatha and exclusively used it on the imps, that way I could get the resets basically every time I killed one. Iron Stomach is a really good choice for this fight, as we don't really have any meaningful self-healing outside of Crimson Vial, so we might as well buff it in any way that we can. Dirty Tricks is great because Gouge will let us stop a lot of the imp moves as needed, and making Gouge free is a big plus so we don't waste any of our energy for no reason. Alacrity is just a really easy and simple haste buff that we basically always have active, so it's really the de facto choice in the level 45 row. And lastly, I would take Blade Rush, as not only can it do some AoE burst damage, but you can use it as a lunging attack to more quickly reach Agatha or any imps that you need to defeat. For some general Outlaw tips, don't forget you have Kidney Shot and Gouge for interrupting casts if Kick is on cooldown, and Cloak of Shadows can help keep you protected if you're taking a long time to burn through Agatha's Dark Fury shield, or if Kick is on cooldown, or if you just get a bad overlap of Umbral Imps while Dark Fury's active. I strongly recommend avoiding to use Kick if Agatha's getting close to 100 energy, as a regular CC like a Gouge or a Blind or a Kidney Shot doesn't work on her, but it works on the ads. Grappling Hook and Sprint should basically be active every time you need to run to the other side of the room when Agatha teleports due to cooldown reduction from Restless Blades, so use both and get to Agatha as fast as possible without getting hit by the fell boulders. Lastly, I'd recommend bringing some consumables like food, pre-pots, and drums just to make it a little bit faster, but definitely health potions would be a great idea. Again, with us having to rely solely on Crimson Vial and maybe just a lucky grand melee roll for that leech, we don't have much in the way of self-healing without farming old content for random healing or tanking trinkets or anything ridiculous like that. Anyways folks, I hope this guide on Agatha and the Legion Timewalking Mage Tower event help you get your new transmog set and get you a step closer to unlocking that soaring spell tome mount. If you have any other questions or need advice, feel free to leave a comment, and if the video did help, a like on the video is always immensely appreciated. As always, my appreciation and gratitude to all of my viewers and especially my patrons, who all help make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.